Hey, Archie, we had a client this week ask if he should follow Dave Ramsey's advice and take Social Security early and invest those funds.
Well, Rob, that's a great question, and it depends. I'm Archie Hoxton.
And I'm Rob Hoxton.
And this is Last Paycheck, weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. Welcome back to the Last Paycheck Podcast, brought to you by Hoxton Planning and Management. We're your hosts, CFP professionals Archie Hoxton and Rob Hoxton. And today we're going to talk about an article that we saw recently that was talking about one of the most well-known financial coaches in the country, maybe in the world, Dave Ramsey, and some advice that he gave sort of broadly on Social Security and what to do with Social Security. And the long and short of it is he recommended take Social Security early at 62. It's the earliest you can take it, and invest the checks that come in.
Yeah. Interesting idea. And it was a question posed by one of our clients.
Yeah.
Which makes it real and interesting, of course.
Yeah. And it's not the first time I've heard that either. I mean, that's a reasonably common question out there. And yeah, it is an interesting idea, an interesting strategy, but it's not as simple as it would sound. I mean, there's a lot to think about with this. And I'm not going to say it's like definitely no or definitely yes. It's one of those situations where it really depends. But if you're gonna do it, you have to really understand the risks involved.
Yeah, because it's sort of pretty irrevocable, that decision, right?
Yeah, it's permanent. Yeah. And it's also, interestingly enough, we did an episode on this a while back. We found some data that suggested that one of the most common regrets in retirement is taking Social Security too early. And so a lot of people regret doing that. So
I think a lot of people underestimate how long we're going to live in retirement, right?
Yeah.
And that's a long time to make one financial decision that can't be changed. And
right.
And it's also interesting that, I've listened to Dave Ramsey's radio show. I've been through segments of Financial Peace University that were put on at our church. I think it's great stuff, but he does have a history of really not being a big fan, and that's understating it, of Social Security.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he really sees Social Security as a ripoff.
Right.
Not his words, my words, but yeah. So we want to frame this conversation with that in mind.
Right.
That he has a bias. He has a bias. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And, if you think about Social Security is, for many people, not simply it was intended as a supplement to retirement. For many people, it is a primary source of retirement income. And so that's why this decision, it needs to be made on an individual level, and you shouldn't necessarily take a sort of advice thrown out broadly without looking at your individual circumstances. Which is why we don't give advice here. We try to paint the picture and lay out the problems, the risks, the benefits of things for you to make your own decision with. But
right. So I think what Dave has said is that he thinks that people should consider claiming Social Security at the earliest point possible, which is 62, and take that money, assuming that you don't need it to live on, take that money and invest it in a, quote, good mutual fund.
Yeah.
And on many occasions, Dave has also said that if you invest in a good growth mutual fund, you ought to be able to get 12% per year. And that, frankly, is not very likely.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
it's a stretch.
Even if you got index returns over a long period of time, you probably wouldn't have gotten it. And if you look at the returns that individual investors actually have gotten compared to the major indices, like the S&P 500, if you take an investor that's investing in an S&P 500 fund and compare their returns to the actual S&P 500, more often than not, their returns are substantially lower than the index.
Yeah.
And you might ask yourself, well, why? Well, the why is the person that you look at in the mirror every day. So we are human beings. We are driven by emotion. We make decisions emotionally, and that affects our investment results. So to simply, in a somewhat cavalier way, say you should simply just take the money, take Social Security early, invest in a good mutual fund, and then that will give you more money than if you actually waited to take it. So
Right.
So,
And the other side of that is that, historical returns are not a guarantee of future results. I mean, when you look back at history and you can take an average return over time, usually you're looking at a really long period. I mean, 15, 20, 25, even 100 years of history. And you take an average, well, that sounds great. But when you have a short period, like I want to generate a better result for myself taking it early than by delaying and getting the 8% increase every year to full retirement age.
you're only talking about delaying maybe 4 years, right?
4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
yeah. So that 4 or 5 years, you might get an unfortunate sequence of returns where you're not averaging 12%. Maybe you're averaging 3%.
Or maybe it's negative.
Or maybe it's negative.
There aren't many, I don't know how many, there aren't many instances where over a rolling 5-year period you had a negative return for the whole period.
Mm-hmm.
But there are plenty of instances where that return wasn't much more than 1% over a rolling 5-year period.
Absolutely. And that's also, again, we're working on history. Things can happen that have never happened before. Right. And so that's a key factor in deciding this because, gosh, I mean, you think about delaying Social Security, getting an 8% increase every year that you delay, and that's guaranteed. You can't really, without any risk, you can't really get that anywhere else. I mean, you can't go into the investment, capital markets and expect that kind of product guaranteed. I mean, it's just not real. You won't find that. And so passing that up is passing up a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah. And, as a financial planner, Archie, I know that you would agree with this. Having different types of money to count on in retirement is such a great thing.
Yeah.
We talk about having different tax buckets, whether it be pre-tax 401k or IRA, whether it be post-tax Roth IRAs, which aren't going to be taxed, or triple tax-free HSAs, or just taxable accounts. Being able to have those different types of monies to draw from, depending upon your tax situation, can be a really powerful tool. The other thing that we don't talk about that often is having some of your money actually be guaranteed money.
Yeah.
And we have talked about the capitalized value or net present value of this future Social Security benefit. It's a huge thing. For many people, it's worth more than their home.
Worth more than their entire net worth in many cases.
So I think you're right. It's a very individualized decision. But I can't find that many scenarios in which it actually makes sense to draw Social Security early simply to invest the money.
Yeah. And this is where I think there are circumstances that can make sense, but there aren't many. I think one of them, and all this, we always encourage this, but all of these kinds of big permanent decisions should be made in the context of a robust financial plan. So, because this one, it has a huge asterisk, right? It's, do you need Social Security when you retire? If you're someone who doesn't need Social Security, you can fund your entire retirement without it. Then, yeah, it might make sense, and you're retired at 62, which is also difficult.
That's important, because if you're not retired and you have earned income over a fairly low amount,
Yeah, you get your benefit is
Penalty, yeah.
reduced. And then so that the whole idea, if you're still working and you take it early with the idea to invest it, and your benefit is reduced by your earned income based on their formula, then the whole idea goes out the window, right? It doesn't work out. It just doesn't make sense at that point. But so let's say you're retired. You've got a retirement plan in place. You know that you don't have to rely on it. You don't need it for yourself. Then yeah, you could take it. You could invest it. You could invest it really aggressively. And you could just save it and, potentially over the course of your retirement, out earn that 8% per year increase from, that you would get from age 62 to age 70. That could make sense. The numbers could work out. But again, you have to be comfortable with not having the same amount of guaranteed income. I'd say you have to be comfortable knowing that I don't need Social Security. I've funded my retirement through my other savings. And you're comfortable, rolling the dice and having a smaller benefit for the rest of your life.
Here's a novel idea. What if you took your Social Security starting at 62 and you took every bit of that and you bought lottery tickets?
I think they made a movie about that.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. You could actually did they make a movie?
I think somebody was using the law of large numbers and buying so many lottery tickets that it worked. I never saw it, but it was kind of a cool premise for a movie.
I kind of put that idea in the same category as that guy. Remember that guy who ate all of his meals at McDonald's for a certain period of time?
Oh, yeah. Supersize Me.
Supersize Me. And, he actually didn't live to be very old. That didn't
did he
directly kill him, I don't think, but I think he's dead now.
Ah, that's too bad.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is. But I look at some of these things as being, it's possible that this could work, but there's so many variables. There's so many things that could go wrong in it that it's almost, it's not like playing the lottery, but there's a high dispersion of potential outcomes, and most of them don't actually work in your favor.
Yeah. And I keep coming back to, again, you can't get a guaranteed 8% return anywhere. You can get it with your Social Security benefit. And it's so comforting knowing that you have one of the pillars of your retirement income is guaranteed. And so having some element of your retirement income planning, not depend on the fluctuations in the capital markets. That's does wonders for your just sense of well-being and peace of mind in retirement. I think that you can't forget about that benefit when you're making these decisions.
Yeah. I think we should mention that there is a significant part of the population that is distrustful of the government.
Yeah.
Right? And really is of the opinion that Social Security, at least in its current form, isn't likely to be around in the future. I don't share that perspective. I have a healthy distrust of authority and the government myself. I'm not inclined to think that we're going to lose our Social Security benefit. But if you are one of those people, if you believe that you're likely to have that benefit taken from you at some point in retirement, well, then there's a scenario where you could make a case for getting it while you can and investing it or stockpiling it or doing whatever you need to do in order to feel comfortable. So that would be a scenario in which maybe it makes sense to consider it. I don't think that that's very likely to happen, because just think of the political ramifications of having the single largest voting bloc in this country, the retired people, the AARP members, all en masse decide they're not going to vote for you if you're a politician because you're trying to take Social Security away from them.
Yeah.
You won't be a politician for very long. So So I don't know that that's very likely to happen, but that's certainly a scenario to consider.
Yeah, you can make a case for that. Just, you have to be prepared to accept the risk of being wrong about that and having it not work out in your favor.
Yeah.
But that's a risk that we always accept with every financial decision that we make. And so, I think you can, again, so many answers in the financial world are, well, it depends. It depends on how much appetite you have for risk. It might depend on the distrust you have in the government. It might depend on how much you're going to truly need to rely on Social Security. Because there are cases where that can't be done. I mean, Social Security if it's going to be a primary source of income for you, it might make way more sense to continue working until you get your full benefit and then take it and rely on that. And it could make absolutely no sense. That could end up, there are scenarios where that could be the worst decision of your life.
To take it early and
invest it. Because it's easy to spend from an account that you manage. When with Social Security, you can't overspend your Social Security because you get to the end of the, halfway through the month and you run out, you're going to get more next month. So there's also that kind of overspending piece of it. So I think it really depends, but
for me,
I've never advised.
For me, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait to take my Social Security benefit until at least full retirement age and probably age 70.
Yeah.
Because I believe it makes sense for me.
Yeah. I'm probably in the same boat. Although who knows what it'll look like, in 35 years.
Yeah, it's just around the corner for me.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, I think that just about covers it. There's plenty more that we could talk about with this particular idea from Mr. Ramsey, but anyway, if you enjoyed it, please remember to leave us a comment with your thoughts or leave us a question. Share it, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you can get notified when we have new episodes come out, which is every Wednesday. And then, share it with your family and friends. And we hope to see you next time. And if you have a question you want to direct to us, we have our number here on the screen. So anyway, thanks, and we'll see you next time. You've been watching Last Paycheck, weekly wisdom to help you retire and stay that way. If you like this show, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Last Paycheck is available anywhere you get your podcasts.